In the year 2327, humanity had mastered the stars. From the glittering metropolis on Mars to the floating colonies orbiting Saturn, Earth's influence stretched to the furthest reaches of the solar system. Exploratory fleets traveled beyond known space, pushing the boundaries of human discovery. It was a time of optimism, of boundless possibilities. But in an instant, everything changed. It started as a whisper, a series of anomalies picked up by deep space sensors. Fleets reported ghost signals, impossible energy readings, and glimpses of something vast lurking just outside human territory. At first, the reports were dismissed as errors, the products of faulty equipment, or the imagination of overworked crews. But when an armada of unidentified vessels materialized above the colony of New Horizon, the whispers turned into a shout. Across human space, the arrival of the Celestials was marked by towering ships that defied all known physics, their surfaces shimmering with radiant light. They appeared without warning, seemingly out of nowhere, and positioned themselves above every major planet and colony. The ships were massive, dwarfing even the largest human dreadnoughts. Entire fleets scrambled to engage, but their weapons were useless. Missiles fizzled out before they reached the ships. Lasers scattered harmlessly off the vessel's glowing surfaces. On Earth, panic erupted as the global communications network faltered. Governments issued emergency broadcasts, urging citizens to remain calm. Military forces were placed on high alert, but they were as helpless as anyone else. All eyes turned to the skies, where the first transmission from the Celestials echoed across the planet. "We are the Celestials," a deep, resonant voice announced, speaking in every language simultaneously. "We are your creators, the architects of your existence. For millennia, we have watched you grow, waiting for the moment when you would transcend your origins. But your path has deviated. Your free will has led to chaos, war, and destruction. Your time of independence has ended." The message was met with disbelief. Religious leaders declared it a hoax. Scientists frantically analyzed the broadcast for signs of tampering, and conspiracy theories flooded the data networks. But disbelief turned to horror as the Celestials demonstrated their power. Without warning, an entire space station above Venus vanished, its millions of inhabitants wiped from existence. In an instant, the Celestials had shown humanity their mastery over reality itself. "Submit, and you will be spared," the voice continued, calm but undeniable. "Resist, and you will be erased. This is not a negotiation." Earth's leaders scrambled for a response, but nothing came. The once confident governments and militaries were paralyzed by the overwhelming force they faced. A secret meeting of the United Terran Council, broadcast in real time to all colonies, showed humanity's most powerful figures arguing in confusion, unsure of what to do. Some advocated for surrender, citing the futility of fighting against godlike beings. Others, driven by pride and fear, urged for immediate retaliation. In the chaos, however, a small voice began to rise among the people. It wasn't a voice of fear or despair. It was a voice of defiance. On the outer colonies, where life had always been harsh and survival demanded resilience, there were those who refused to bow to these so-called gods. Kara Valen, a former military commander turned mercenary, was one of them. Watching the broadcast from a hidden outpost on the moon Europa, Kara clenched her fists as the Celestials' words echoed through her mind. She had fought in countless battles, seen death and destruction up close, but she had never known anything like this. Yet something in her stirred, a deep, burning anger that pushed back against the fear that gripped so many. "These gods," Kara muttered, staring at the skies above Europa's icy surface, "they bleed like anyone else." Her crew of misfits and soldiers for hire gathered around her, uncertainty etched on their faces. They had fought together through impossible odds before, but this felt different. This was something beyond the wars they had known. But Kara's eyes blazed with determination. "We've faced worse odds before," she said, her voice cutting through the tension in the room. "They think they can make us kneel, but I say we fight." Her words spread like wildfire across the colonies. As humanity's leaders floundered, Kara Valen's defiance became a rallying cry for those who refused to accept that their fate had already been sealed. From the furthest outposts to the industrial cores of Mars, the first sparks of rebellion began to ignite. The gods had come to claim humanity's future, but humanity wasn't ready to surrender it. The initial shock of the Celestials' arrival had left humanity reeling, but the weeks that followed saw the rise of something even more powerful: resistance. Across the colonies, defiance simmered beneath the surface. What had started as scattered protests turned into a coordinated effort, driven by one common belief: the Celestials were not invincible. And leading that charge was Commander Kara Valen, whose words of defiance had become a rallying cry for those unwilling to submit. Kara's reputation had grown quickly, spreading from colony to colony. She was a soldier who had seen too much war, fought too many battles for a corrupt Terran council, and had sworn off loyalty to any government. But when the Celestials came, everything changed. Kara could not stand by and watch humanity bend the knee to beings that claimed to be gods. Inside the dimly lit command center on Europa, Kara stood over a holographic map of the solar system, her eyes scanning the various resistance cells springing up across the colonies. She had no formal army, no powerful backers, just a small group of fighters, ex-soldiers, engineers, and hackers who had lost everything to the Celestials. Her people called themselves the Freeborn, a name that represented the essence of what they fought for: freedom from any power that sought to rule over humanity. "We've been gathering intel," said Noah Graves, Kara's second-in-command, a former intelligence officer who now ran their network of spies and informants. His wiry frame and sharp eyes made him look more like a professor than a soldier, but his mind was a weapon. "The Celestials have placed their ships above every major population center on Earth and the colonies, but they're not attacking outright. They seem to be waiting for something." "Waiting for us to submit," Kara muttered, her fists clenched. "They want us to fall in line, to accept their rule without a fight. But that's not going to happen." Graves nodded. "There's something else. We've intercepted communications from a rebel cell on Mars. They've managed to disable one of the Celestials' smaller ships completely by accident. The ship was damaged by a rogue asteroid, and they finished the job using an old EMP cannon. They weren't expecting it to work, but it did." Kara's eyes lit up. "So they can be hurt." "More than that," Graves continued, "they're vulnerable. Whatever tech these Celestials are using, it's not infallible. We're working on reverse engineering the data now. If we can figure out how to replicate that attack, we might have a chance to hit them where it hurts." The news sent a ripple of hope through the room. The Celestials had appeared unstoppable, their ships immune to human weapons. But this was proof that they weren't omnipotent. They could be fought. Kara turned to the rest of her team. There was Mira, a former pilot with a no-nonsense attitude and the scars of too many close calls in dogfights. Dr. Evra, a rogue scientist with an uncanny ability to hack into any system, and a handful of other outcasts who had found a new cause under Kara's command. Each one had a personal vendetta against the Celestials, and each one was willing to die to see them fall. "We hit them," Kara said, her voice sharp and decisive. "We hit them where they don't expect. We take down one of their ships, just like Mars. If we can prove to the rest of humanity that these gods can bleed, more will join us. We'll turn this resistance into a full-blown rebellion. How do we even get close to one of those ships? Mira asked, her arms crossed as she studied the holographic map. Kara smiled, a hint of mischief in her eyes. That's where Dr. Evra comes in. We've been working on something that might just give us a chance. Evra, a tall, lanky figure with sharp features and an irreverent attitude, stepped forward. We've been tinkering with stealth tech. The Celestials seem to have some kind of advanced scanning systems that detect all our ships before we even get close. But we've modified an old freighter with a cloaking device, something we've been scavenging parts for from dead wrecks in the asteroid belt. It's not perfect, but it should give us enough time to get close without being spotted. Kara's heart raced. They had a plan, a real, tangible plan. It wasn't without risk. In fact, it was almost certain death for whoever led the attack. But if they succeeded, it would change everything. Humanity needed a win, something to prove that these Celestials weren't gods, that they weren't invincible. "I'll lead the strike team," Kara said, her voice steady. "We get close, disable their ship, and then we send a message to every corner of human space. We show the galaxy that humanity won't bow to anyone, not even gods." Graves raised an eyebrow. "This is a one-way ticket. You know that, right?" Kara nodded, a fierce glint in her eyes. "Then let's make sure it's a ride they'll never forget." The team exchanged grim smiles, a sense of resolve settling over them. They had no illusions about the odds. They were going up against beings who claimed dominion over life itself. But they were human, and humans had a tendency to defy the impossible. The spark of rebellion had been lit. Now it was time to fan it into a flame. The icy surface of Europa glistened under the pale light of Jupiter as Caravallen and her team prepared for one of their most dangerous missions yet. Europa was home to a secret facility long abandoned by the United Terran Council, a place rumored to hold artifacts from a time before recorded human history. According to the data Kara's team had gathered, the facility contained technology that might hold the key to defeating the Celestials. The wind howled across the frozen plains as the team's shuttle touched down near the facility's entrance. Kara, clad in a sleek black combat suit, stepped off the ramp first, her boots crunching in the snow. The air was thin, and the landscape was eerily quiet, broken only by the hum of their equipment. She turned to Dr. Evra, the brilliant scientist who had been instrumental in decoding the celestial tech they'd encountered so far. "You're sure this is the place?" Kara asked, eyeing the massive, ice-covered structure ahead. Evra adjusted his visor, scanning the ancient building with a mixture of awe and excitement. If the data's right, this facility dates back to pre-Earth civilizations. We're talking thousands of years before humanity even had written records. This is where the Terran Council stashed away everything they didn't understand, things they didn't want anyone to know about. Kara motioned for the team to move in. As they approached the entrance, Noah Graves and Mira kept watch, their weapons drawn, while Evra hacked into the ancient control panel that controlled the facility's doors. With a flicker of lights, the massive doors slid open, revealing a dark, cavernous interior. The inside of the facility was unlike anything they had ever seen. The walls were made of a strange, obsidian-like material that seemed to pulse with energy. Intricate patterns lined the corridors, glowing faintly as if the facility itself was alive. Kara led the way, her steps echoing through the vast, silent halls. "This place is giving me the creeps," Mira muttered, her eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of movement. Kara ignored the tension in the air. Her focus was on their mission. They were close, she could feel it. After navigating through a maze of corridors, they finally reached the heart of the facility. A massive chamber filled with ancient devices, glowing orbs suspended in the air, and holographic displays that flickered on and off. At the center of the room was a large, crystalline structure that pulsed with a rhythmic, almost organic light. Evra's face lit up as he approached the structure. This is it. This is the core of the facility. Whatever power it holds, it's in here. Kara stood beside him, staring at the crystal. What do you think it is? Evra ran his hand across the smooth surface of the crystal. I don't know for sure, but the energy readings are off the charts. This thing is ancient, older than anything we've ever encountered. It could be connected to the Celestials' origins, or it could be something they feared. As Evra continued to analyze the structure, something strange began to happen. The crystal's glow intensified, and the entire facility seemed to come to life. The walls pulsed with energy, and Kara felt a surge of warmth wash over her, like a current of power flowing through her veins. Kara, something's happening, Mira said, her voice tinged with concern. Before anyone could react, the crystal emitted a blinding flash of light, enveloping Kara in its glow. Her body tensed, and she fell to her knees as the energy coursed through her. It felt like her mind was being torn open, flooded with visions, ancient battles, forgotten worlds, and a people who wielded incredible power. But most of all, she felt something awakening inside her, something long buried beneath the surface of human evolution. Kara, Great shouted, rushing to her side, but the energy field around her repelled him. Kara gasped for breath as the vision subsided. Slowly, she stood, her eyes glowing faintly with the same light that pulsed from the crystal. The rest of the team watched in stunned silence as she rose to her feet, transformed by the energy. What just happened? Graves asked, his eyes wide with shock. Kara looked at her hands, feeling the strange new power coursing through her. I don't know. But whatever this place is, it's awakened something in me. Evra, who had been observing the energy readings, looked at her in awe. It's not just you, Kara. This facility, this crystal, it's a key. A key to unlocking something humanity has forgotten. The Celestials may have suppressed our true potential, but this power, it's been within us all along. They were afraid of what we could become. Kara's mind raced. The Celestials, for all their godlike power, had tried to bury humanity's past for a reason. Now that power was reawakening, starting with her. And if she could harness it, she knew they had a chance, more than just a chance, to fight back. This is just the beginning, she said, her voice steady, but with a new, undeniable strength. We're going to give the Celestials a fight they never expected. Kara Valen's transformation had changed everything. What began as a desperate attempt to find a weakness in the Celestials had turned into something far greater. Humanity's forgotten power was reawakening. Kara was the first, but as word of her new abilities spread through the rebellion, more volunteers lined up to undergo similar procedures, using the ancient technology they had discovered on Europa. The rebellion was no longer just a band of misfits striking from the shadows. It was becoming an army, one capable of challenging the Celestials. The news of Kara's power and her growing influence spread like wildfire through the colonies. On Mars, Saturn's moons, and the outer reaches of the asteroid belt, resistance cells began to unite under her banner. And as humanity's courage grew, so did the fury of the Celestials. They responded with overwhelming force, launching devastating attacks across human space. Entire colonies were erased in moments, their populations incinerated or simply vanished by the Celestials' incomprehensible weapons. Where once their ships had hovered above planets like silent sentinels, they now struck with terrifying precision, reducing whole cities to ash. Panic and chaos swept through the ranks of the rebellion, but Kara refused to be cowed. She knew that for every colony destroyed, The Celestials were revealing more about their tactics and their weaknesses. In a command bunker deep beneath the surface of Titan, Kara and her closest advisors gathered around a holographic map of the solar system, studying the growing patterns of celestial attacks. The room was filled with tension, the air thick with the scent of sweat and burning equipment as mechanics worked to repair damaged systems. Red markers blinked across the map, signifying the colonies that had fallen in the last week. "The Celestials are pushing harder than ever," said Noah Graves, his voice grim as he gestured to the map. "They've taken out 5 colonies in the last 24 hours. If they keep this up, we won't have any bases left to defend." "They're reacting to us," Kara replied, her eyes focused on the map. "We've been hitting their supply lines and their smaller ships. They're lashing out because they know we're starting to gain ground. But they're spreading themselves too thin. Look here." She pointed to a gap in the pattern of attacks. "They're leaving their flanks open near the asteroid belt. They're overconfident." Mira, standing next to Kara, frowned. "Even if that's true, how do we take advantage of it? Every time we go up against one of their main ships, we lose dozens of people. And we can't afford to keep taking losses like that." Kara's expression hardened. "We don't go after their ships this time. We go after something bigger. We need to strike at the heart of their power." Graves looked at her, raising an eyebrow. "You want to hit one of their command vessels." "Not just any command vessel," Kara said, her voice steady. "We're going after the ****. The room went silent. The **** was the Celestials' primary flagship, a massive, city-sized vessel that had appeared over Earth at the start of the invasion. It was said to be the seat of their leader, the Supreme Celestial, and the source of their power. No one had ever dared to approach it, let alone attack it. Mira shook her head in disbelief. "The ****. Kara, that's suicide. Even with all the power you've unlocked, how are we supposed to take down something that massive?" Kara turned to Evra, who had been quietly working at his console throughout the meeting. The scientist looked up, a slight smirk on his face. "Actually, I've been working on that. I've been studying the energy signatures from Kara's transformation and comparing them to what we've seen from the Celestials. There's a pattern, something in the way their ships are powered. It's similar to what's in her. My guess, the Celestials are using the same kind of energy that Kara tapped into back on Europa." Kara nodded. "Exactly. If we can disrupt that energy source, we can bring the **** down. But it's not going to be easy. We're going to need to get close, closer than we've ever been." Graves folded his arms. "You're talking about boarding the ship." Kara met his gaze. "Yes, we're going to take the fight to them directly. We infiltrate the ****, disable its power core, and take out their leader. If we can kill the Supreme Celestial, we cut the head off the snake." The room buzzed with nervous energy. The plan was bold, some would say reckless, but they all knew that time was running out. The Celestials were destroying humanity colony by colony, and soon there would be nothing left to fight for if they didn't act. Mira sighed, a grim smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. "Well, if we're going down, we might as well go down swinging." Graves grinned, though his eyes were filled with tension. "I guess it's time to see if gods really can die." Kara's heart raced as she looked at the team she had built, the people she had fought alongside through impossible odds. This was it, the moment that would decide the fate of humanity. The War of the Gods had begun, and they were ready to face whatever came next. With a deep breath, she gave the order. "Prepare for launch. We take the **** tomorrow." As the rebellion prepared for their daring strike against the ****, Something unexpected was brewing within the ranks of the Celestials themselves. While Kara and her team meticulously planned their assault, a schism, long hidden from human eyes, began to widen among the Celestial leadership. The seemingly united front of the so-called gods had fractures beneath its surface, cracks that humanity had unwittingly exacerbated. Deep within the obelisk, the Supreme Celestial stood in the heart of his command chamber. His form was bathed in an ethereal light, tall and imposing, his features obscured by the divine energy that constantly radiated from him. The chamber was vast and adorned with symbols of celestial authority, pulsing with the same otherworldly power that drove their ships and technology. But there was unrest in the air. "We have underestimated them," said one of the lower Celestials, her voice filled with a mixture of fear and anger. Her radiant figure flickered as she spoke, revealing the strain that was now rippling through the divine ranks. "The humans are not breaking. They're changing." The Supreme Celestial turned slowly to face his council, a circle of towering figures whose very presence seemed to warp reality around them. Their defiance is insignificant. Humanity's struggle will end, as all things end. They cannot stand against the will of the divine. And yet, another Celestial interjected, his voice sharp. "They have already done the impossible. They have discovered the ancient power, the one we suppressed millennia ago. Caravallen, the leader of the rebellion, has tapped into the force that even we no longer fully understand. If she continues to awaken more of them, our dominion over this system is at risk." The Supreme Celestial's gaze darkened, though his face remained impassive. "The ancient power is flawed. It is chaotic, uncontrollable. Even if these humans can harness a fraction of it, they will destroy themselves before they can destroy us." But there was more than simple concern in the room. Beneath the fear of humanity's growing strength was something deeper, more dangerous, a fracture among the Celestials themselves. A figure stepped forward, her aura dimmer than the others, but her voice unwavering. "I do not agree," she said, her tone deliberate. "We should not have returned. Humanity was always destined to evolve. We have interfered with their natural progression, and now we are facing the consequences." The room went silent. The dissenting Celestial's words hung in the air like a forbidden truth. The others turned their glowing eyes toward her, their energies bristling with disapproval. "You speak of destiny as if we are not the architects of it," the Supreme Celestial said coldly. "Do you doubt our purpose, Elysia?" Elysia, the dissenting Celestial, stood her ground. "We were never meant to rule them. We were guides, not conquerors. Our interference has unbalanced the natural order, and now we face rebellion. If we do not change our approach, we will bring about our own downfall." A murmur spread through the council. Alicia's words struck a chord with some, while others viewed her with disdain. Among the Celestials, unity had always been their strength, but now their ancient ways were being challenged from within. The humans' unexpected resistance, coupled with their rediscovery of the ancient power, had unsettled even the gods. The Supreme Celestial narrowed his eyes at Elysia. "You forget your place, sister. We have brought order where there was none. Without us, humanity would have destroyed itself. We saved them from their own chaos. Or perhaps we created the chaos," Elysia replied, her voice defiant. "By stifling their evolution, by ruling them as gods, we denied them the chance to become what they were meant to be. And now Caravallen is proving that they can surpass even us." The tension in the room was palpable. The council members exchanged uneasy glances, unsure of where their loyalties truly lay. Elysia was not alone in her doubts. Some had watched humanity for centuries, observing their growth with a mixture of curiosity and admiration. But the Supreme Celestial's iron grip had kept dissent in check, until now. The Supreme Celestial's voice cut through the silence like a blade. Enough. Elysia, you have spoken out of turn. You will be removed from this council and confined to your quarters until you remember the purpose of your existence. Before Elysia could respond, the Supreme Celestials will surge through the chamber, binding her in a glowing chain of energy. She struggled briefly, her form flickering, but she did not resist for long. Instead, she met the Supreme Celestial's gaze, her eyes filled with a quiet, defiant fire. "You cannot hold back the tide," she whispered. "The humans will rise. And when they do, it will be because you refuse to listen." With a gesture, the Supreme Celestial dismissed her, and Elysia vanished from the chamber, her presence erased from the council. But the seeds of doubt had been planted. Even as the Supreme Celestial tightened his grip on his followers, a rebellion was brewing within their own ranks. Far below, Kara and her team were preparing for their assault on the *****. Little did they know that the cracks in the celestial hierarchy might be the key to their victory. The gods were no longer united, and in their division, humanity might find the chance it needed to strike a fatal blow. The war between humans and gods was no longer a battle of strength alone. It was a war of wills, and the Celestials' grip on their empire was starting to slip. Kara Valen's breath was steady as she led her team through the labyrinthine halls of the *****, the heart of the Celestial Empire. The assault had been swift and brutal. Under the cover of a massive diversion in the asteroid belt, Kara and her elite strike force had infiltrated the behemoth ship. Now, deep within its core, they were closing in on the power source that kept the entire celestial fleet alive. Her senses were sharper than ever. The ancient power she had awakened on Europa flowed through her veins, guiding her every move. She could feel the pulse of energy in the walls around her, the living heartbeat of the ship. The Celestials had underestimated humanity. Kara had become the proof of that. Behind her, Graves, Mira, and Evra moved with precision, their faces set with determination. The strike force had taken losses on their way in, but they couldn't afford to stop now. Kara could feel the weight of the war pressing down on them. If they failed, there would be no second chance. "This is it," Evra whispered, checking the readings on his device as they approached a vast, glowing chamber at the center of the ship. "The core. If we overload it, the feedback will cripple the ***** and send a chain reaction through the entire fleet. But we have to do it fast. Once they know we're here, they'll flood this place with troops." Kara nodded, her eyes fixed on the pulsating energy field ahead. "We won't get another shot at this. Let's end it." As they stepped into the chamber, the air seemed to hum with energy. The core was a massive crystalline structure suspended in the center of the room, radiating power that felt almost alive. For a brief moment, Kara was overwhelmed by the sheer scale of it, the very essence of the Celestial Empire, contained in this one vulnerable point. But they weren't alone. The Supreme Celestial materialized before them, his towering form glowing with the same radiant energy as the core. His face was expressionless, but his eyes burned with cold fury. "You have come far, Kara Valen," he said, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. "But your journey ends here. Humanity was never meant to rise above its station." Kara stood her ground, meeting his gaze with unflinching resolve. "We were never meant to be ruled by false gods." With a wave of his hand, the Supreme Celestial sent a shockwave of energy surging toward them, but Kara was ready. She raised her arms, and the ancient power within her flared to life, forming a protective shield around her team. The two forces collided in a dazzling display of light and energy, but Kara held firm. Kara Valen's breath was steady as she led her team through the labyrinthine halls of the *****, the the heart of the Celestial Empire. The assault had been swift and brutal. Under the cover of a massive diversion in the asteroid belt, Kara and her elite strike force had infiltrated the behemoth ship. Now, deep within its core, they were closing in on the power source that kept the entire celestial fleet alive. Her senses were sharper than ever. The ancient power she had awakened on Europa flowed through her veins, guiding her every move. She could feel the pulse of energy in the walls around her, the living heartbeat of the ship. The Celestials had underestimated humanity. Kara had become the proof of that. Behind her, Graves, Mira, and Evra moved with precision, their faces set with determination. The strike force had taken losses on their way in, but they couldn't afford to stop now. Kara could feel the weight of the war pressing down on them. If they failed, there would be no second chance. "This is it," Evra whispered, checking the readings on his device as they approached a vast, glowing chamber at the center of the ship. The core. "If we overload it, the feedback will cripple the **** and send a chain reaction through the entire fleet. But we have to do it fast. Once they know we're here, they'll flood this place with troops." Kara nodded, her eyes fixed on the pulsating energy field ahead. "We won't get another shot at this. Let's end it." As they stepped into the chamber, the air seemed to hum with energy. The core was a massive, crystalline structure suspended in the center of the room, radiating power that felt almost alive. For a brief moment, Kara was overwhelmed by the sheer scale of it, the very essence of the Celestial Empire, contained in this one vulnerable point. But they weren't alone. The Supreme Celestial materialized before them, his towering form glowing with the same radiant energy as the core. His face was expressionless, but his eyes burned with cold fury. "You have come far, Kara Valen," he said, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. "But your journey ends here. Humanity was never meant to rise above its station." Kara stood her ground, meeting his gaze with unflinching resolve. "We were never meant to be ruled by false gods." With a wave of his hand, the Supreme Celestial sent a shockwave of energy surging toward them, but Kara was ready. She raised her arms, and the ancient power within her flared to life, forming a protective shield around her team. The two forces collided in a dazzling display of light and energy, but Kara held firm. "You cannot win," the Supreme Celestial intoned, his voice full of finality. "You wield a power you do not understand." Kara's lips curled into a defiant smile. "I understand enough." Before the Supreme Celestial could strike again, the chamber shook. There was a rumble, then a voice, not from Kara, but from behind the Supreme Celestial. Alicia, the Celestial who had defied her brethren, appeared. She had freed herself from her imprisonment, and her aura, once dim, now glowed as brightly as the Supreme's. "Your reign ends today," Alicia declared. She joined her power with Kara's, their energies entwining in a radiant burst. Together, they unleashed a blast of raw force that shattered the Supreme Celestial's defenses, throwing him back. Kara seized the moment. She reached out with her newfound power, connecting with the core. The energy surged through her, overwhelming and exhilarating all at once. She felt the weight of the Celestial Empire, its secrets, its history, its power, and she knew what she had to do. With one final, focused thought, she overloaded the core. The chamber erupted in blinding light, and the **** began to collapse, its power unraveling from the inside. Kara and her team raced toward the exit, but she could feel it. The celestial fleet was faltering. Across the solar system, the ships that had oppressed humanity for so long were failing, their energy siphoned away. As they escaped the disintegrating ship, Kara looked back one last time. The Supreme Celestial was gone, defeated. Alicia had vanished, her role in the battle complete. Kara had done what once seemed impossible. She had brought the gods to their knees. As the obelisk exploded in the distance, humanity rose from the ashes of oppression. The era of the Celestials was over. Humanity was no longer a race of slaves or subjects. They were ascendant.